Hello, friends. Greetings. Namaste. My name is Brahmachari Vineet, and with me is joining Brahmachari Premdas. We are connecting to you with you from our monastery in Khandala, and we are happy, very happy actually, to be sharing with you in this way. As you know, this webinar is based on the book Affirmations for Self Healing by Swami Kriyananda ji, and this week's topic is inspiration. I'll do the reading first and then we'll do the affirmation together. I'll guide us into that. And then, with a prayer, after that, Brahmachari Premdas will share with us a few words on this particular affirmation and this quality of inspiration, really. Inspiration. Inspiration is of two kinds: the rediscovery or rearrangement of thoughts that already exist in the subconscious mind, and the sudden appearance of new thoughts or new insights from the superconscious. This higher inspiration certainly is more to be desired than the lower, for it is based in truth and not in imagination. It is not always easy, however, to recognize the difference between lower and higher inspiration, particularly when the lower is vitalized by the emotions. When inspiration comes, receive it with calm love and see whether, untouched by emotion, its impulse grows stronger or weaker. Love is the water that nourishes true inspiration. Now we'll affirm first out loud. I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self.
In calmness, I receive inspiration from my highest.
Now, in a normal voice, I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. Now, in a whisper, I hold my thoughts to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. Now, mentally taking it to your subconscious mind, I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. Now, again mentally, but this time gazing at the point between the eyebrows, bringing it to the superconscious mind, I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. Now, mentally repeating this prayer from Swamiji. O Spirit, Thou art all truth. In Thee lies the solution to my every need. Inspire me now, Lord. Show me which path to follow of the many that lie before me. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. With that, I would like to pass on to Brahmachari Premdas.
Thank you, Vineet, for that reading. Yeah, today's topic is inspiration. So, as you all know, it's very important for us to be inspired to do anything. For example, anything and everything we do in life depends to great extent on getting the right ideas. Is that true? Just any idea doesn't make it the right idea. It depends on the level of consciousness you're on. So one of the things that's necessary in order to manifest. So today's topic, inspiration, I'm going to more take it from the level, how do we develop inspiration? As you all know, we all need inspiration to do anything. Otherwise we'll not be able to achieve success. We'll not be able to go anywhere. You go in one direction, you stop, then you turn back, finding inspiration. Unless you have the inspiration, you won't be able to go further. So it's very important to have. I think you all agree with me. So on today's topic, I'll just try to find a way where I'll just try to share more from Swami Kriyanandaji's teachings and from his experience, from his talks about how to develop this inspiration. So like I said before, anything and everything we do in life to a great extent depend on getting the right ideas. You have to get the right idea to do any business, to be an artist, to develop a story, or for a creative design. So what does it depend on? So it also now what idea you what is the right idea and what idea you get totally depends on the level of consciousness you have. If you have a higher consciousness, you have a better idea, and if you have lower consciousness on that particular day, and the thoughts or the ideas will be different. I think you would have all have experienced the same. So there is, so we all have to raise our consciousness. So let's try to do this even this evening, right now. Maybe sit straight, try to keep your consciousness more at the spiritual eye as you even listen to this. So there is an interesting story in the life of Paramahansa Yogananda ji. He, as you all know, he's the author of Autobiography of Yogi, Whispers from Eternity is one more book from him. If anybody hasn't looked at it, hasn't gone through the prayers and the poems there, I would strongly recommend it. So this interesting story is around this book. So what happens once somebody asks Paramahansa Yogananda ji, is it possible to get inspiration to be under the control of your will, for inspiration to be controlled under the control of your will? At that time, when this person asked Yogananda ji this question, Yogananda ji was busy getting dressed for a lecture. So at that same time, thinking of the question, is it possible for inspiration to be under the control of will? He just sat down and he said yes. And he told this person to take down a poem. He closed his eyes, summoned that level of inspiration, and gave this poem, said to him these words. I'll just repeat few words from that poem. Father, when I was blind, I found not a door that leads to thee. Now thou hast opened my eyes, I find doors everywhere. In the hearts of flowers, in the sounds of winds, and so on. So you'll be able to see. And the next part of this incident is, and finally this book comes out. When this happened, he was still writing this book, and when the book comes out, it was reviewed very favorably by many magazines. One of the reviewers said, this was with, and he said he could not resist but quoting one poem. And do you know which was the poem this reviewer shared with everyone? The same poem which Yogananda ji wrote when he in this transition between his getting dressed and going for a lecture. So do you all think that many times we all think that we have to have the right setting, nature, solitude, silence, only then we can write, only then we can perform. But now there is, with Yogananda ji's story and this incident, how we could bring down the inspiration at will. Now we have to like think deeply now. I don't think that's always, it's not true that you can't get inspiration even without having that all the favorable factors. Also, Swami Kriyananda ji, in one of his top shares, there are certain principles which will help you to get inspired at will. Let's see what are those principles in this today's session. So one is the level of consciousness, as we have shared before. Now the second principle I'm going to slightly discuss here is energy. You all might know all artists are usually high energy beings. So whenever they have to do anything, whenever they come onto anything, they light up the stage, or just there is an aura or something which is not present in normal person. It's usually the energy which helps them to develop this. And what happens now, what are the factors that will help you to have this high energy? One more factors are concentration and willpower can make any things happen. And this helps you to start developing increasing your energy And you all might know, with increase in energy, you'll also have increase in magnetism. So now one more point, like one principle is this energy. Now one more principle that can help you to get inspiration at will is the inner freedom. For example, each day sometimes we have to hear so many, let's say, some nasty things somebody tells you on one particular day, and then the whole day your mind keeps running on, why did he say that, why could he not do that, and all those things what others said will start defining you. And how this inner freedom comes to play here is, many times if we can just, like, it's always good to always like step back from things a little bit and be free inside. See, when you're free inside with that freedom, then if you put the mind where you need to go, then the things will start happening. And next principle, which could also help to gain this inspiration at will, is the is knowing and being aware that we are part of a bigger reality. Yogananda ji used to always mention that angels will many times give inspiration to scientists and artists when their minds are open. So you would have heard many people who do this artworks that they just heard that idea, or how it came to them in the, I think it was during my college days. I'd heard that the DNA structure had come to this person's mind through his dream. And I may be wrong, but there are many more examples if you really want me to look into. And one more point now, with all these things, one more principle which really helps is faith. Now, this faith is not just coming out of all of a sudden you just say, I have this faith to move a mountain. It's more, this faith is coming from experience. You've been doing smaller things. As you do smaller things, you go to bigger things, and then finally bigger things. So this, out of this faith, you know that inspiration can be summoned. You start with maybe 2 lines one day and maybe one story, and then you're able to start writing tens, hundreds, once you're able to like start tuning into the inspiration. And you'll also start seeing that, don't think of producing inspiration with this little brain of yours, a small brain, but if you try to channel the inspiration of the universe, you'll be amazed at kind of things the inspiration can produce through you. And one more small, I'm just sharing so many points today, which I heard from Swami Kriyananda ji's talk, moreover. So, and one more thing that can also help is for the mind to be still. If your mind is still, then you'll be able to hear to the voice, which comes only in silence, this inspiration. So, how can we become more still? Now, again, meditation is the key to stillness. So, try to meditate daily a little bit and try to create this habit within yourself. And then once you're able to now still the mind more, and then many times you'll be able to draw inspiration so much at will. So just seeing the, so we have discussed all these small principles today about how to draw inspiration at will. At this point, I'll request Brahmachari Vineet to now share his. Thank you.
Thank you, Premdas. Premdas had given us a beautiful foundation for how can we be inspired, and especially being inspired at will. And I just wanted to build from the foundation which Premdas had shared. And when he started sharing, the first thing he said was basically that the kind of inspiration we draw depends on the kind of consciousness we have. And isn't it interesting that we have found many times in our lives that when we are uplifted, when we are positive, we automatically draw positive thoughts, positive ideas. And at the same time, when we are, let's say, very tired, we are very, moody, and we end up drawing such kind of ideas and such kind of thoughts. And from there, I would like to share what Yogananda ji said, which is very interesting, which he mentioned in his autobiography of a yogi. He said, thoughts are universally and not individually rooted. And when you think about that, It means that your thoughts and my thoughts, we are not creating our thoughts, even though we may think so. We are actually acting as radio stations. And depending on, as Premdas said, the kind of consciousness we have, we draw the kind of thoughts, the kind of inspiration in our lives. So our main job is really to, tune into the right radio station, you might say. In other words, if you want to listen to an uplifted music, to an uplifted radio channel, change your consciousness, and I would say change my consciousness. And that way, it will become easier and easier. One more beautiful thing Premdas shared was it will come with faith, and initially it might be a line, then it might be, a story, and then so on. But how is faith built? Like Premdas shared, meditation and then practice also. The more you practice, the more you'll find that you are not the doer. There's a line from the autobiography of a yogi which I want to quote over here, which Paramhans Yogananda ji said. He said, in shallow men, the fish of little thoughts cause much commotion, but and this is not the full quote, but he essentially said that the ones who are drawn by divine inspiration, these thoughts hardly make a ruffle. In other words, when there is too much emotion that this is my thought and this is my idea and I am so tensed about it, we are basically, it's like, having a hose and you're letting the water flow out. But if the hose is pinched, it feels like, oh, I'm trying to draw more inspiration, but actually there is very less water coming out. And similarly, when we can be relaxed, when we can let the water flow through that hose of inspiration, it is just a natural flow of how inspiration comes into our life. One interesting thing which Swami Kriyananda ji said, which was taught by Yogananda ji, was this point, the point between our eyebrows, is the broadcasting station, and our heart is the receiving station. So, whenever you feel like you want to draw inspiration, you need inspiration in your life, or if it feels like you are in a folk and you want to take a decision whether I should do this particular option or whether I should take this particular option, or there are millions of options. And if you have found this, just like me, if you just try to use your brain and see that is this what is going to work, and you will come with 1,000 different reasons why it can't work or why it can work, and then for option B you will find why it can work and why it can't work. But if you go with inspiration, if you go with intuition, meditate, make your heart feelings very calm, and that you're not attached one way or the other of how you want to be inspired or which direction you want to take, and then broadcast this thought over here after your meditation, that this is a situation, what should I do? And then feel that answer in your heart. And yes, it takes time in the beginning. It is not something which just happens boom and we are there. Yogananda ji was able to do that in the story which Premdas shared, was because he had practiced, he had mastered that skill. So similarly, if we want to do and be inspired like him similarly, we should keep practicing, first in little things and then in big things. And it can even start with, God, what do you want me to eat today? What shall we cook? Should I make this call now or should I make this call later? And you will find that then life becomes more of a flow and everything is inspired. Everything is ever new. Swami Kriyananda ji wrote 400 pieces of music, 150 books, and it is not possible. And he gave thousands of lecture, and he founded many spiritual communities, successful spiritual communities, at a time where hardly people could. At that time when he founded spiritual communities, the maximum time I think where communities even remained was 1 or 2 months and they would fail. But now Ananda, the spiritual communities which Swami Kriyananda ji started, it's been more than 50 years. How is that possible? Because he led from inspiration, and he wasn't tight about, oh, this is what I should do, this is what Yogananda said, this is how it should be done, what should I do, what should I not do. No, in fact, he said, I haven't done anything. How's that possible? He said, I let God do it through me. And if you listen to Premdas sharing, in a subtle way, he said, we act as channels. We don't see us. as doers, because when we see ourselves as doers, what happens? The emotions get attached. This is my idea. This is how I feel it should be. This is how it is meant to be. I know what I'm talking about because I have experience. No, sometimes actually we will find that someone who's absolutely experienced in a field may not come up with a solution, whereas someone who's a complete stranger to a field can come up with a brilliant inspiration and come up with a solution to a problem. Why and how? That's probably because they just have no attachment to their thoughts, to their ideas that this is how it is meant to be. How do we make ourselves channels? First, letting go of the reactive process that this is how it is meant to be, and keep it more as a flow. Even when you have an inspiration, let's say you're meditating and you feel inwardly that this is what the step I need to do. Or sometimes we may, we are just doing something and in a moment of relaxation, suddenly inspiration comes, and don't jump on it that yes, this is the inspiration, this is I want to do it, but rather, okay, let's take the first step. And you might find that, let's say I'm here in Pune and I have to go to Mumbai. There are many ways I can go from Pune to Mumbai, but take the first step. Should I go in a car? Should I go in a train? Should I take a flight? I know it's lockdown time and I'm almost teasing everyone by talking about traveling, but still, don't in other words, the final destination is that, and I know what I should do. Of course, that is the final destination, but keep checking how you need to do. Let's say you get an inspiration, I need to get this laptop. Okay, where, from how? Just keep tuning in and maybe there will be signs. There was a time when I felt that I was supposed to take a particular action, but I wasn't 100% sure of how to do it. I knew I had to move from a particular city to a different city in India, but I wasn't sure how will I make it happen. But I knew the end result. And I spoke to a friend of mine and I told, I know this is what I need to do, this is what I'm going to do. And my friend, who had more experience than me, told that that's very good and what you want to do seems like a good direction, but how you do it, look for signs and be sensitive. Maybe the person you're going to talk to suddenly says I have a headache, and in that case you just basically say that maybe that is a sign. And of course, don't be too much into sign or this is what, otherwise you might while you're walking outside your house and suddenly you trip and you're like, oh, this is a sign. No, we also need to have our willpower engaged, but still look for, tune in deeply. And that, how does it come? Again, experience. But anyways, to complete the story and making it short, I said okay, and I was determined to talk to a particular person about this, who would have helped me in this transition. But suddenly I felt like maybe I should talk to this other person, and I messaged him on a completely irrelevant topic. And it was actually a teacher of mine when I was still a student. And this teacher of mine told me that I want you to take this class in this exact city where I was about to move, and I want you to take these classes free of cost. And I said, why do you want to do that? And he gave me some reasoning which didn't have any logic, and that allowed me to move from one city to another without any other conundrum or talking too much or explaining or justifying myself. I was just able to make this transition because this teacher of mine was inviting me, and I could tell everyone that I'm going for this particular reason. And even though I didn't think this was the reason it was going to be why I would move, but I did move, but the reason was different. And it just flowed much more smoothly versus if I would have used my will that this is how I want to do it and this is how I want it to be. So when you find yourself in life that even if you know this is what I want to do, try to tune in of how it needs to be done and keep checking. I was talking to a friend recently and he was asking me like, how do you know that this is what you want to do? Like Swamiji says in the prayer that show me which path to follow of the many that lie before me. And so this friend of mine asked, how do we know that this is what I want to do? I said, well, let's say you want to buy a car, and you don't just jump to a conclusion that I want to buy a car and this is the car I want to buy. Take the first step. See, there are, and I'm giving an example, I'm not telling you need to buy a car, but it's just like there are this many options. And from that, talk to one dealer, see how it feels. Maybe that is the right dealer, maybe not. Then talk to the next dealer, maybe see what the dealer presents to you, and then feel it out. Maybe go for a test drive, maybe go for another test drive, see the color. And it's not intellectually like, oh, mileage, take comfort, take seatbelt, take gear, take acceleration, take, feel it out, and then you will see a sign automatically that this is what I need to take. Inspiration sometimes can feel like, here I am getting an inspiration, I am a channel. But no, it's actually a very practical and inward thing. And the more you practice, the more real it will become for you. And as Swami Kriyananda ji said, after doing all that he did, I didn't do anything. God did it through me. And with meditation, with constant practice and communication with God, you will find more and more that this divine inspiration becomes a true reality. With that, let's now conclude with this practice of the affirmation again. And I would like to invite Brahmachari Premdas to lead us into this.
Okay. Thank you, Vineet. That was very inspiring. For the topic is also inspiration, and we all need to be really in to be channels of inspiration all through our lives. So I'm just going to do the reading, and then we'll affirm, and then the short prayer. So inspiration is of two kinds: the rediscovery or rearrangement of thoughts that already exist in the subconscious mind, and the sudden appearance of new thoughts or new insights from the superconsciousness. This higher inspiration certainly is more to be desired than the lower, for it is based in truth and not on imagination. It is always easy, however, to recognize the difference between lower and higher inspiration, particularly when lower is vitalized by emotions. When inspiration comes, receive it with calm love and see whether, untouched by emotion, its impulse grows stronger or weaker. Love is the water that nourishes true inspiration. Now let's affirm together. So, first loudly, in a loud voice, I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. Now, in a normal voice, I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. Now, in a whisper, I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. Now, please repeat mentally with me, taking deep into the subconsciousness mind. I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. This time, please hold the spiritual eye, taking it into super consciousness. I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. And please repeat the prayer mentally with me. O Spirit, Thou art all truth. In Thee lies the solution to my every need. Inspire me now, Lord. Show me which path to follow of the many that lie before me. Thank you. Thank you, friends, for joining us this evening. And we'll meet you again next week at the same time with a new topic on the affirmation from self-healing series. Thank you again. Have a blessed night.